Hello guys, in this video talk about TP-Link Deco BE85 Wi-Fi 7 BE22000 tri-band mesh router review. Subscribe our InfoRx channel. We review mobile, electronic gadgets, computers, and electronics and electrical accessories. Okay, let's go to the topic. The TP-Link Deco BE85 Wi-Fi 7 BE22000 tri-band mesh router is very fast and, with additional satellites, could support over 200 devices in the largest Aussie homes. Of course, Wi-Fi 7 benefits only come partly to Wi-Fi 6E and 7 compatible devices. Still, the extra bandwidth, transmit power, reliability, speeds, lower lag, and the latest tech can significantly improve existing home networks. Wi-Fi 7 routers mesh are backwards compatible with previous Wi-Fi versions, so if you buy a new router, look seriously at Wi-Fi 7. Wi-Fi 7 devices like the Google Pixel 8 Pro, Samsung Galaxy 23 Ultra or the fabulous Oppo N2 Fold are here, and several laptops will be available soon. By the end of 2024, most premium smartphones, Qualcomm SD8 Gen 2 or later, and computers with an Intel BE200 adapter will support it. These are all 2x2 streams and won't use anywhere near the full capabilities of Wi-Fi 7. Australia has lesser Wi-Fi 7 6 GHz bandwidth. This is technical. We have written a preliminary guide Wi-Fi 7B, what it means to you that you should read first. The real issue is that a router, mesh advertised as BE22000 will only be BE15000 here due to ACMA regulations limiting the use of parts of 5 and 6 GHz bands to prevent radio interference with other users. Wi-Fi 7 is not yet certified, probably later in 2024. Some important features like automated frequency coordination, AFC maximizes the 6 GHz signal strength and distance by up to 25% may be added. Also missing is thread and matter support, which is apparently built in and accessed via the Tapo app. TP-Link can enable that. Consumer advice: don't buy grey market, it likely won't work here. Because Australia only has 500 MHz of the 12,000 MHz 6 GHz Wi-Fi 7 band, 42% and 1320 MHz band instead of 3, its firmware and transmission strengths differ. You can quickly tell if the router satellites have an RNZC tick on the external box and the sticker under it. Wikipedia has the approved bands, look at 6 GHz, for each country. TP-Link can update Australian firmware if the ACMA releases more 6 GHz bandwidth. Why mesh over a router? Simply put, a router is like a single car engine. 5/6 of a gigahertz transmits about a 15/10 meter diameter circle around it. Perfect for small homes, although gamers love them too, as game resources can be prioritized. Mesh is like placing an engine on all wheels, distributed power. Each mesh node can bathe the home in another 300 square meters in Wi-Fi or provide extra Ethernet cabled ports to cover larger or longer homes, multiple floors, etc. Mesh preferably needs an Ethernet cable between each node, wired backhaul, or can backhaul over Wi-Fi, not as much bandwidth. The BE85 is a little different from most meshes. First, each engine is as strong as the primary router, and second, if you use cabled backhaul, you get the total Wi-Fi bandwidth. Many mesh don't free up the Wi-Fi backhaul when not used. We use fail, below expectations, pass, meets expectations, and exceed, surpasses expectations or is the class leader, against many of the items below. We occasionally give a pass, able, rating that is not as good as it should be and a pass, plus, rating to show it is good but does not quite make it to exceed. You can click on most images for an enlargement. First impression, pass plus. The TP-Link Deco BE85 Wi-Fi 7 is a white vase-like cylinder design 128mm, round, by 236mm, H, with the stylized 7 highlights. It is attractive and will fit into most decor. It is designed to sit on a benchtop or bookshelf. The router and satellites are all the same. The first one you set up becomes the router. The others are equally powerful. They have a single indicator LED under the front cylinder lip that can be disabled during set times, sleep. TP-Link has not skimped on this. It has Qualcomm Networking Pro 1220 Wi-Fi chip, a quad-core 2.2 GHz processor, 1 GB of RAM and 512 MB of flash storage for its firmware and settings. 2 fans, 8 amplified antennas inside, 12 independent data streams, to continually optimize and streamline the data path from the router to the satellite and vice versa. If using Ethernet backhaul, you can allocate the 6 GHz band to Wi-Fi clients. The only thing to remember is that you need to attach a power cable from a transformer brick and at least one Ethernet Cat6e cable to connect to the internet. Using a wired backhaul between the router and the satellite, you will use another Ethernet LAN to one port. While this review is about the BE85, there is a lower cost BE65, BE11000, and a BE65 to 5G, BE9300, coming soon. And if your budget does not extend to Wi-Fi 7, TP-Link has some excellent Wi-Fi 6E, also tri-band, XE200, AXE11000, XE75 Pro, AX5400 and XE75, AXE5400. Setup: the app makes it easy. Pass Plus. Download the Deco app for iOS and Android. It does require an account, and that has the usual privacy implications. From our reading, they are relatively benign, with 2 issues. First, it is subject to the laws of the United Kingdom. We presume this is a typo, but at least it is not China, and there is no mention of where Australian data is stored. We won't go through setup as the app guides you. It is straightforward. Plug the router into power and an Ethernet cable to the internet gateway. Once set up, plug in power to the satellites, and they will join the mesh. You can name them to make it easy to see. Hint: if you are replacing a router mesh, use the same SSID name and password, turn the old router off first, and everything will reconnect. At worst, you may need to power the clients off and on. How to configure Wi-Fi on TP-Link Deco BE85 Wi-Fi 7 BE22000 is a tri-band router. It has 3 bands totaling approximately 15,000 megabits per second, not 22,000 as in the US. 2.4 GHz, 1,376 megabits per second, 20/40ths of a megahertz. Effective transmission distance is about 30 meters or a 700 square meters circle, up to 100 meters line of sight. Mainly used for IoT devices and between 150 to 600 Mbps connection speed. 5 GHz, 8,640 megabits per second, 20/40ths, 160-240ths of a megahertz. Effective transmission distance is about 10 to 15 m or a 300 square meters circle. Mainly used by Wi-Fi 5 and 6 devices like computers, TVs, etc., that connect between 866-1,730ths of a megabit per second. The 240 MHz aggregation is not available in Australia. 6 GHz, 11,520 megabits per second, 20/40ths, 160-320ths of a megahertz. In the US 4,800 megabits per second here. Effective transmission distance is 7 to 10 m or a 150 square meters circle. It can be used by Wi-Fi 6E and 7 and connect at less than 2,500 megabits per second. These distances are effectively halved each time the signals penetrate walls, floors, cupboards, or windows. In any case, a 3-pack will effectively cover approximately an area 30 by 30 meters equals 900 meters too. The Deco BE85 Wi-Fi 7 BE22000 has a slightly different band setup. By default, it binds the 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz, 160 Hz, WPA2 security network into one SSID. I had no issues with the 36 plus IoT devices connecting when I renamed it the same as the Orbi 962.4 GHz SSID. If you have issues, select 2.4 GHz or 5 GHz only or create a 2.4 GHz IoT network, effectively another guest network. It has a separate 6 GHz WPA3 network for the exclusive use of Wi-Fi 6E and 7 devices. I named this 4x_6 GHz as it is only seen by those devices. Finally, the MLO multi-link operation network 2.4 plus 5 plus 6 GHz WPA3, which I renamed 4x_5G, same as my Orbi 960, because any device can see and use it. You can also set this for 5 and 6 GHz, no 2.4 GHz, which may be useful if you enable the IoT network. Older 2.4 and 5 GHz devices can connect to the MLO if they support WPA3. The test Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra and Google Pixel 8 Pro join MLO at the maximum of 2400 megabits per second 2x2 by 160 MHz on the 6 GHz network. If I connect to the 6 GHz network, I get up to 2882 megabits per second. It also supports a 2.5 of a GHz and 6 GHz guest network isolated from the main network. You can also limit this bandwidth. The Deco app. The app, unusually, has far greater functionality than the web interface. But it has far less granular customizability than, say, the Netgear app. Let's just say that power users may be frustrated if they need more control. For example, you cannot change channels within bands, but you can run the optimizer that will do it for you. We tested this several times over 4 weeks, and each time, it selected different 2.4 and 6 GHz channels. But the reason is that AI automatically adjusts bands, so you don't need to think about it. The web interface is extremely limited. Double NAT, network address translation, router or access point. With HFC or FTTN, you plug this directly into an RJ45 plug. The primary Deco is the router, so you don't need a gateway. If you have FTTN ADSL2+, you will have an existing Wi-Fi router, gateway, and plug this into an RJ45 Ethernet LAN socket. You may have read that you should set the primary Deco up as an access point to avoid double NAT. Don't. Deco loses its NAT, DHCP server, parental controls, COS, device isolation, and connection alerts if you do. A double NAT is fine as long as the gateway router and the Deco have different LAN IP addresses and preferably disable the gateway Wi-Fi to stop interference. Ports exceed. A 10 gigabits per second SFP fiber optic to RJ45 transceiver is required. This can accept an SPF fiber 10 gigabits per second cable used for 2 to 10 Gbps NBN. 2 by 10 gigabits per second Cat6e RJ45 LAN or 1, only one available if using the SPF adapter. 2 by 2.5 gigabits per second Cat6e RJ45 LAN or 1. USB-A 3.0 for storage and file access, up to 3 online for 3 nodes. While this is a 5 gigabits per second full duplex port, the maximum speeds will depend on the attached flash drive or external SSD. You can expect approximately 100 and 100th Mbps sequential read-write. SPF to RJ45 adapter. Practically 10 gigabits and 2.5 gigabits ports support from 10 megabits per second or more, and their speed will depend on the Ethernet cable rated speed and any switches you use to connect the router, satellite, Ethernet connected TV, set-top boxes, Blu-ray and speakers. Most will only have up to 1/120th of a megabit per second NBN, the maximum internet speed you can get over FTTN. If your speed is below 2500 megabits per second, 2.5 gigabits, use that port for an internet connection. That leaves 2x10 Gbps ports that you could use for dedicated Ethernet backhaul to 2 satellites using Cat6e cable. Our tests with Cat6e cable showed approximately 5 gigabits per second full duplex. If you have a 2.5 gigabits per second switch, we use a terrific TP-Link DMS106XT 2.5 gigabits per second gaming and media 6-port unmanaged switch. You may run a 2.5 gigabytes NBN cable to the router and 2.5 gigabits cable to the switch, then 2.5 gigabits cables to the satellites. Our tests with a 2.5 gigabit switch showed 1.3 gigabits per second full duplex. Or if you have Cat5e cabling or an older gigabit 1000 mpb switch, the maximum speed you will get is 500 megabits per second full duplex between the switch, router and satellites. Backhaul, exceed. Backhaul is how the router and satellites communicate. The faster the backhaul, the more data it can move and the more devices it can handle. The Deco BE85 Wi-Fi 7 BE22000 can use Ethernet backhaul up to 10 gigabits. Wi-Fi 6 GHz backhaul to 4.8 gigabits, Australian limit, is no longer available to Wi-Fi 6E and 7 clients. Don't forget that this has a much shorter range. Ethernet and Wi-Fi 6 GHz. There is confusion that this aggregation uses 2.456 of a GHz MLO, but if the MLO channel is enabled for general use, and it should be, only 6 GHz is used. Ditto to clients. Let's be clear. If you don't use Ethernet backhaul, preferably 2.5 or 10 gigabits, and use Wi-Fi 6, The fastest speeds we recorded between a satellite and router at 10 meters line of sight was less than 1 gigabit per second. Even moving to 5 meters only marginally improved the performance to 1.3 gigabits per second. And that brings up the main issue of mesh. The router transmits a signal, both front-haul to clients and back-haul to the satellite. The satellite happily retransmits what it receives, it cannot amplify it. So, while you may get terrific device-to-satellite speeds, the actual throughput to the router is a fraction of that. You probably won't notice, as your speed test will likely be on 100 megabits per second or slower NBN. Speed and coverage tests exceed. There are many ways to measure router satellite speeds. The apparent speed between the Wi-Fi device and the router or satellite. That is a rubbish measurement, as you know that each transmits the same speeds and has the same band distances using a cabled backhaul. Internet access download, upload, ping speeds, but as most of Australia has less than 100 megabits per second download, 10% of the slowest gigabit backhaul, you will get whatever the router gateway is connected to. Speeds affected by loads. Fire up multiple 4K streams, 3x 4K TVs playing UHD from Netflix or Prime Video, 2 Ethernet and 1 Wi-Fi 6, again, no impact on speed. We added a whole of home Sonos, 10 speakers, all belting out at decent volumes, no impact. Coverage, how much area can the 3, or 2 or 1 pack cover? The antenna design radiates in a 360 degrees circle at about a 90 degrees angle, covering a typical home's floor to ceiling. This leads to a rule, don't use too many satellites as they can interfere with auto roaming. Each cover 6 GHz, 150 meters to 12 by 12 meters, 5 Hz, 300 meters to 17 by 17 meters, to 2.4 GHz, 700 meters to 26 by 26 meters. Auto roaming, exceed. Handoff was fast. Heat, noise, pass. At worst, the unit reached 50 decibels at 50 centimeters away. External heat was generally below 30 degrees. Power, pass, 15 to 18 W with occasional peaks when multiple 4K streaming per unit. It will cost approximately 20 cents per day per node. Parental control and kid shield, not tested. Parents can set app blocking, web filtering, YouTube restrictions, SafeSedge, and online time limits to keep kids safe while having fun online. Kid shield protects children away from home, even if they are not connected to your home Wi-Fi. Some advanced features require a subscription. Network protection, not tested. Home Shield 3.0 examines your network by scanning and identifying potential risks, stopping them before they harm your network. Some features require a subscription. CyberShack's View, TP-Link Deco BE85 Wi-Fi 7 BE22000 tri-band mesh router for distributed speed. Most mesh systems have a dedicated router and different satellites with reduced functionality, like fewer Ethernet ports, less bandwidth, etc. Not so with the BE85. All three are routers with full functionality acting as one very powerful mesh. If you use 2.5 gigabits or 10 gigabits Ethernet backhaul, even 1 gigabit per second is satisfactory as it is full duplex. The entire 2.4, 5/6 of a gigahertz spectrum is available to Wi-Fi devices. If you have to use Wi-Fi backhaul, you dedicate the 6 GHz bandwidth to that, which is not recommended if you have Wi-Fi 6E or 7 devices. Then you have those extra Ethernet ports on each, perfect for connecting a TV, set-top box, Blu-ray, network-attached storage or a PC, Mac. But what impressed me most was the new network speed and reach when replacing one of 2022's most powerful mesh systems, Netgear ORBIRBKE 963 Wi-Fi 6E AX quad-band Wi-Fi mesh. Load times on streaming services were seconds quicker, digital TV channels came up as fast as free-to-air, and lag was gone. I was also impressed that I could place a new FE 340 spotlight dual cam over 40 meters away at the end of a long driveway from a Wi-Fi connected satellite in the garage and behind a metal roller door. The Orbi 6E ran out of puff at less than 20 meters. Orbi's new Wi-Fi 7 mesh may be just as good. But the impressed does not stop there. While the BE85 has been available for a few months, this O version is flawless. Ratings 91/100. We now have enough benchmarks from this, and the Netgear RS700S Wi-Fi 7 BE19000 tri-band router is fast, very fast to rate both. But remember, this is a mesh, and Netgear is a router. Features: 90 pretty much idiot-proof setup using the app. Power users will feel limited in customization areas. Value, 90. It is expensive at $2,999 for a 3-pack, but remember, these are all fully featured routers in their own right. The cheaper mesh will have lesser featured satellites. A 3-pack or BE970 BE22000 mesh is $2,299 United States dollars and 99 cents, about $4,000 here. Performance, 90. I feel so plebeian only having NBN 1/120th of a megabit per second, but that is as fast as 70% of Aussies can get. It exceeded test results in every area compared to Wi-Fi 6E mesh. Ease of use, 90. Straightforward app. Design, 90. Attractive vase-like design. Would I buy the TP-Link Deco BE85 Wi-Fi 7 BE22000? In a heartbeat, but I am a speed freak geek. I was sold once I saw what benefits it brought to my existing Wi-Fi 6E network. The quad-band Orbi Wi-Fi 7 mesh has an extra 5 GHz 8647 megabits per second dedicated backhaul channel, but some say that won't work here due to 4x4 by 240 MHz aggregation not being available. Still, you can and should use Ethernet backhaul. Pros: straightforward setup using the Deco app. 4 multi-gig ports 2x10 Gbps, and 2 by 2.5 gigabits per second supporting multi-gigabit wired backhaul. Wi-Fi 7 support, backward compatible with existing clients. Excellent overall real-world performance, even compared to Wi-Fi 6E. Ethernet backup gives 100% Wi-Fi bandwidth availability. Cons: the O version only has 500 MHz versus the US version, which has 1200 MHz. AFC and some Wi-Fi 7 features are not yet certified, not TP-Link's fault. Home Shield Pro costs extra. Thanks for watching this video. For more information, touch with us. Comment your opinion.